Let's start with the Kansas City Royals. Royals win. Royals grabbed 3 in the third, but the Nationals countered with 3 in the fourth, each team getting a run in the first. The run score was tied at 4. Royals grabbed 3 in the ninth, and the Royals won 7-4. Royals' magic number is down to 2. Royals' magic number is down to 2. Twins lose one of their next, and I definitely know if they win tomorrow night, the Royals are in the playoffs. Royals' magic number is 1. Now we move on to Thursday Night Football. The Cowboys could be in brinks of being 1-3 and their season being at risk of being over. And their season also risk of Mike McCarthy being out. And Dak Prescott starting all over with the Cowboys again as their quarterback since he's been signed to a long-term deal. Dak Prescott had 4 touchdowns and 2 INTs this year. Wide receiver CeeDee Lamb is off to a good start. The Cowboys might not need more than that tonight, but they will the rest of the season. Michael Parsons, who seemed really frustrated in the Cowboys, lost last week to the Ravens as the Ravens held off the Cowboys. Quarterback players to watch out for the Giants: Mac Jones, Malik Neighbors, Devin Singletary. Hold on. Oh, sorry, Bo was eating something he wasn't supposed to. That had never happened. Running back of the Giants, Devin Singletary, he's been about above average. He's in 15th in rushing and has 2 touchdowns. Wide receiver Malik Neighbors has been really good. He is 5th in yards overall in the NFL, tied for 3rd in touchdowns and is 2nd in receptions. Kareem Hunt was activated from the practice squad. We'll get more into this tomorrow. Now we move on to Depression Part 2.
Major depressive disorder, which is sometimes just referred to as depression, is characterized by prolonged helplessness and discouragement about the future. Individuals with this disorder have low self-esteem and very powerful feelings of worthlessness. They also lack the energy to do the things that they used to enjoy, much less the things that they have to do or the things that they don't enjoy. They tend to feel socially isolated and have trouble focusing on important tasks and have trouble making decisions. And this low mood tends to pervade all aspects of their life. There are a number of physical symptoms that also go along with depression. Lethargy, so feeling fatigued. Individuals with depression also tend to show fluctuations in weight, so either a lot of weight gain or a lot of weight loss. And they might also have trouble sleeping, or they might sleep too much. And I think that these physical symptoms are often ignored, because in Western cultures, like in the US, we tend to think about depression in terms of moods or in terms of emotional states. But for individuals in some Eastern cultures, especially cultures where it might be seen as inappropriate to delve into or talk about feelings and emotions, people in these cultures tend to think about depression and experience depression in terms of these bodily symptoms. And so it's really important that these aren't discounted. Depression or depressive symptoms are the #1 reason people seek out mental health services. And because of this, some people have taken to calling it the common cold of psychological disorders. And I like that term for some reasons, and I dislike it for others. What I like about it is that it captures how pervasive this disorder is. It is estimated that 13% of men and 22% of women worldwide could meet the criteria for depression at least once in their lives. And one study has shown that as high as 31% of college students might experience this disorder. And these are really high numbers. And so in that way, I think that this term is appropriate. However, I think that the term common cold doesn't really capture the seriousness of this disorder. Because depression isn't just feeling down once in a while. And it's not feeling sadness or grief at appropriate times, which is just a normal part of life. And I think that this term kind of minimizes that part of the disorder. Depression can be triggered by a life event, like a loss or a breakup, but it doesn't have to be. It also doesn't usually appear alone. It is actually really common for individuals with depression to have other disorders, such as anxiety disorders. And I've been writing in this blue color to kind of signify depression, but I'm kind of getting bored with it now, so let me switch it up. So there are a number of factors that may be involved in depression, and I'm going to split them up into 3 categories: biological factors, psychological factors, and sociocultural or environmental factors. And let me take a minute to get all of that down. All right. First of all, we know from family and twin studies that there's a genetic component to depression. And we also know from studies that use functional imaging that individuals with depression show a decreased activation in the prefrontal cortex. And this could be associated with the problems with decision-making that people with depression tend to have, as well as their difficulties in generating actions. Researchers have also found lower levels of activity in the reward circuitry in the brain. And this could help to explain why individuals with depression might not find enjoyment in the actions that they once found pleasurable. Depression has also been associated with certain neurotransmitters and neurotransmitter regulation. And I'll abbreviate that here by writing NT for neurotransmitter. Research has suggested that individuals with depression might have fewer receptors for serotonin and norepinephrine. And I think that all of this research is amazing. I think that it's really important. And it's also really compelling in a way that research findings that include neuroscience typically are. But with that said, I really want to caution you against oversimplifying these biological factors. To give an example about why I'm saying this, I want to talk about the relationship between a certain serotonin transporter gene and depression. And this gene is known as 5-HTT-LPR, and I'll write that down. And a lot of findings have shown that this gene is involved in depression. But in actuality, it is only associated with depression if the individual with the gene is in a stressful environment. But the story doesn't actually end there. It's actually even more complicated. Because it turns out that if an individual with this genetic feature is placed in a warm and positive environment, they actually show a decreased risk for depression. And this is something that we don't totally understand yet. We're still trying to figure out why this might be the case. But importantly, I think that this really shows us how complicated biological factors can be.
And now we start with major depressive disorder, part 6. Depression is a serious mood disorder that affects your body, your whole body, including your mood and thoughts. It touches every part of your life. It is important to know that depression is not personal weakness or character or flaw. Treatment is often needed. Once you have episodes of depression, you're at risk of having more throughout your life. If you don't get treatment, it will lead to major problems and will happen more often and more seriously. Depression can be a trigger key part of life. Lasting sadness, anxiousness, or empty mood. For major depressive, loss of interest in almost all activities. Appetite change and weight. Change in patterns such as inability to sleep or sleeping too much. Slowing of physical activity, speech, and thinking, or agitation, increased relentless and irritability, decreased energy, feeling tired or slowed down. Almost every day, I feel like this right now. I don't have major depressive disorder, but I have depression. Feelingness of worthlessness, feeling of unguided guilt, ongoing feelings, trouble with certain making decisions, repeating thoughts of death, suicide, wishing you were dead, or attempting suicide. Note that that's the one that's an emergency, attempting suicide or having a plan.